So do keep those verses open in front of you. 1 Corinthians 12 and verse 12 to 27. Our title slide should just be appearing on the screen now. And our title for this morning, very simply, is Church Membership 101. I want to begin with an illustration. Back nearly 15 years ago, it's hard to believe that 2012 was only 15 years ago. 2012, a journalist named A.J. Jacobs decided that he was going to do something very unusual. He spent an entire year, 365 days, tracking down every living relative he could right across, not just the United States where he lived, but across the entire world. What started out as curiosity soon turned into obsession that the family noticed. He eventually identified over 75,000 individuals that he could possibly be related to across the world. Distant cousins, third cousins, twice removed, people who shared DNA with him on almost every corner of the globe. And here's what this man discovered. He discovered this: being related to someone and actually knowing them are two completely different things. He had 75,000 relatives, but he only had a handful of family. The connection existed on paper, but genuine belonging for us, the kind where people know your name, they notice your burdens, they notice your absence, they care, they love you, they celebrate your wins. That only happens with a small circle of people that we do life with, and as that man AJ did life with. You can be related to somebody without even being connected. You can share a name without sharing a life. You can be on the family tree without ever sitting around the family table. And the same, uncomfortably and painfully true, is in the church. That you can have your name on a membership roll and no one can actually know who you are. They might know your name, they might know what you look like, but do they actually know you? You can attend on Sundays year upon year and still very much be a stranger. You can show up on a Sunday, sit in the exact same spot, in the same pew every single week, shake the same hand on the door, and still be on the outside of what church is actually supposed to be for you. Because here's what Paul wants us to understand this morning. God never designed the church to be about the crowd. He never designed the church to be about everyone filling the pews. We would love to see that, but that's not what the church was designed for. God designed the church to be a body, as Paul says in the word here. And there is a world of difference between those two things. The crowd, they show up. But a body, they show up and they play its part. A crowd watches on, but a body works. A crowd leaves when the experience maybe becomes unenjoyable or something else catches their eye in another part of the province. A body stays because bodies, why? They do not quit on themselves. They stay, they commit, and they work. Now, later this month, as we've already said, in church life, we have a lot to look forward to. We have, at the moment, 5 new people coming into church membership, and I'm genuinely excited about that. And if you belong to the church, you should be genuinely excited about that too. But I want you to understand, for those who are coming into membership, what you are actually saying yes to. This is a message for you this morning, because it is not a formality. It's not simply a tick box exercise that you put your name onto a piece of paper. This is a promise. This is a covenant. This is a declaration that says, I am not just passing through, but I am putting roots down. I am planting myself here. These are my people, and I am going to be present for them as they will be present for me. Maybe for some of you, you have been members for years, and this sermon is not to serve as a guilt trip for you. I'm not here to spiritually beat you over the back of the head with church constitution. No, because nobody came into church this morning and says, I hope Pastor Reuben really teaches me and gives me a lecture on church constitution. No, or membership policy. This morning is a loving reminder of what you said yes to. And that love may be very hard to hear, but we need to hear it. And maybe for some of you, you're still on the fringes. That you've been coming for a while now, maybe for months, maybe for years, and you like it here. You maybe say that Desert Martin Nazarene is your church. It's where you go, but you haven't yet committed. And a part of you maybe is wondering, Why does that really matter this morning? Why does Reuben, why does the church make such a big deal about membership? Is it not just paperwork by the end of the day? Is it just church being very churchy about church things and church matters? And I get that, I do, because often when we hear membership in our world today, there's often two things that come into our minds. We think of a club, maybe a small clique, as we might think in church, and also maybe we think of a subscription, maybe a direct debit, and it's just going to be wanting money from us. But that's not the answer of what church membership is. The answer of what church membership is 1 Corinthians chapter 12, because Paul isn't talking about institutional structures. Paul is talking about a living, a breathing organism where every single part matters, where no one is optional, where the whole body suffers when any part decides to sit out and say, I'm not going to pull my weight. So if you're coming into membership, this is a message for you. If you're thinking about membership still, this is for you. If you're already a member, buckle up, because we've got a lot to get through this morning, and I won't try to overstay the welcome of this message. Today is a reminder for those who are members of your responsibilities and what you've already said yes to. So we come to our first point this morning, and our first point is you are not an audience, you are an organ. You're not an audience, you are an organ. But I want to ask you something before we dive into this point. When you think about your relationship with this church, with Desert Martin Church of the Nazarene, what picture comes to your mind? Are you a customer? Are you a spectator? Someone who turns up when it suits them, but opts out when other things come up? Someone who consumes what's on offer, but leaves when the product stops meeting your personal needs and makes you comfortable? Because if that's your mental model of church, Paul is going to ruin your morning here, and as a result, I'll probably ruin it too. But look at verse 12 of our passage and what it says. For just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body, though many, are one body, so it is with Christ. Paul does not say that the church is like a club or an audience gathered around a stage waiting to be entertained, waiting to wave their hands in the air and shout from the top of their lungs. Paul says that it is a body, a single living, breathing organism where every part is connected to every other part. And nothing, absolutely nothing functions properly when it is isolated. But then look to the last verse in our passage in verse 27. Now you are the body of Christ and individually members of it. He doesn't say you're like a body, not similar to a body. You are the body. You are not an audience. You are an organ. And here is what every medical student on the planet knows that maybe some of us as church people, church members, have simply forgotten. Organs don't survive when they are detached from the body. You can separate a hand from the arm, you can clean it up, but there's no blood anywhere to be seen anymore. It might still look like a hand in some way, it has all the right structure to still be that hand, but it cannot function because it was designed to operate as something bigger than itself. And the moment you decide that your Christian life is a private arrangement between you and God and not into the church, that doesn't require commitment to the local body. You have just described a detached organ. And friends, I say this with love. Detached organs do not thrive. They deteriorate. And some Christians aren't spiritually struggling today. They are spiritually suffocating because they have disconnected themselves from the very body that God designed to keep them alive, to make them thrive, to make them grow, to make them know their Savior evermore every day. Dietrich Bonhoeffer once wrote these words: the person who loves their dream of community more than the community itself destroys community. But the person who loves those around them with all their mess and inconvenience and imperfection, that person builds something that lasts. Some people, they love the idea of church more than they love the actual church. We love the community as long as it's convenient. We love belonging as long as it costs us nothing. But Paul says that is not how a body works. So let me say this. Being in the room matters. Being in church is important. Not because God is taking a clipboard and he's marking off, you attended Sunday morning, you didn't make it to Sunday night, you came to Wednesday night, but you missed the next Sunday. That's not what God is doing. But look at Hebrews 10 and 25, and we see these words on the screen. Not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. The writer of Hebrews is saying, you need to be in the room. You need the people in the room. You need what happens when the body of Christ gathers together. And yes, live streams and recorded sermons, as we do as a part of church here, they do have their time and place in certain circumstances. But these methods of technology were never, ever meant to replace physically gathering together in church, the physical presence in the life of the church. I want to go a bit further with this. That not only does showing up matters, but how we show up matters too. And this may be very hard to hear, but we need to say it. And I say this in love. Some of us, we roll into church after past every single Sunday. And we run in, we're distracted, we're rushed, we're mentally elsewhere. We're running out of the house trying to get here on time. We might not get here on time. And our minds, when we sit down in the pew, they're not where they should be. We haven't given the appropriate time to worship God, to pray in preparation of coming into church. And then we come on the Sunday and we think to ourselves, why does worship feel so flat to me? Why did I get nothing from the message? Can I tell you why? Because your body has arrived, but your heart has not caught up yet. And I want you to hear me carefully, because I know that life is complicated. Children are unpredictable. Beth and I haven't been blessed with children of our own yet, but I know that children are unpredictable. I know that a tractor could appear in the road and slow you down. Other than the tractor, there's not an excuse for traffic in Bid of Ulster on a Sunday morning. But I know these things happen in life, but we make time for what we treasure. We make time for what we treasure. Because I want to ask you this. When you arrive for a job interview, what time do you arrive at? Early. When you have a flight to catch to go on your holiday, what time do you arrive at the airport? Early. 2 hours early. When something genuinely matters to you, you make the time. You don't stumble in halfway through and just hope for the best. As one of our brothers prayed in the prayer meeting before the service, Psalm 122 and verse 1 says, I was glad when they said to me, let us go to the house of the Lord. Glad, expectant, and prepared. There's something powerful about arriving ready to worship God, ready to listen to his voice, ready to encourage others in the church, and ready to serve. Because the body doesn't just need your presence, it needs your down. But James says, blessed is the one who stays. Blessed is the one who holds. Blessed is the one who doesn't run when things get hard in your Christian life. Not because the trial is pleasant, because you can all tell me our trials are not pleasant, but because God is doing something in you through it that simply cannot be done in any other way. He's not just helping you endure it. He's shaping your heart to look more like Jesus in the middle of it. So let me show you what that actually looks like in a real life. Any diver will tell you, I'm sure there's no divers here, the closest we have to a pool is a swimming pool. We don't have any water near us. But any diver will tell you that when you go underwater, your body is fighting against you. Your body naturally wants to come up to the surface because it doesn't want to go down to the deep, deep levels. Your natural instinct is to rise, and everything in you, it wants to float back to the surface. So the divers, when they're diving deep, deep down into the sea, they wear a weight belt. They strap it around their body with the extra load before they descend. And it seems counterintuitive. Why would they add weight when they're already deep in the water? Because without that very weight, they can't stay down. And without the weight, they can't do the work that they went down to do. The burden isn't fighting against them. It's what is actually making the mission possible. The weight is not the problem. It is actually the provision. And that is why God is not wasting your worst season. Sometimes the weight that God has allowed in your life is the very thing keeping you from floating away into shallow waters. The trial that you hate may be the thing keeping you anchored. The burden that you resent so much today may be the thing that is keeping your soul drifting into water that looks calmer but is far less deep. The season that you're so desperate to escape may be the season that God is indeed using to keep you close to Him, doing the work that He has set forth to do in your life, staying the course, going deeper than comfort would ever take you. And we look to another verse as Peter said this in his writings, Peter 1 and verse 7. So that the tested genuineness of your faith, more precious than gold that perishes, though it is tested by fire, may be found to result in praise and glory and honor at the revelation of Jesus Christ. More precious than gold, tested by fire. The imagery is so deliberate there in Peter's writings. You don't refine gold by keeping it comfortable. You put it in the furnace. And John Newton, the writer of Amazing Grace, once said these words: I judge of a man's character by what his trials do to him. The same sun that melts the wax hardens the clay. So the trial is not God going silent, because it might be the loudest He's ever spoken to you in years of your Christian walk. And I want to get very specific here, because this is not about abstract theology. This is your actual life. This is very real, and it reaches into all of our lives, no matter the background, no matter our age, what we've done in the past, what we're facing today. This is our actual life. And maybe you didn't make it to Sunday night, you came to Wednesday night, but you missed the next Sunday. That's not what God is doing. But look at Hebrews 10 and 25, and we see these words on the screen. Not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some.
Well, thank you very much, Reuben. It's nice to be here this evening, and also to enjoy fellowship again with Reuben and Bethany here. And it's nice to come and see where Reuben and Bethany are, and see their house, and to see the church, and see where the Lord has brought you to. I trust that God will richly bless you here in Desert Martyr, and they seem to have found their niche, haven't they? Seem to be very settled. I can remember the first time that I met Reuben, when he talked about coming into church ministry. I know Reuben remembers exactly where we were, but we were drinking coffee and